When a classified circuit breaker is installed in an electrical panel and that breaker isn't explicitly listed on the panel's label, the question arises whether this violates the National Electrical Code Section 110.3. This section of the code pertains to the installation and use of equipment according to its listing and labeling. In this specific situation, the breaker's label takes precedence over the panel's label. The primary reason for this is the UL listing of the breaker. Underwriters Laboratories, or UL, is a nationally recognized testing laboratory that sets standards for safety. When a breaker is UL listed, it means that it has been tested and approved for use in specific applications, including certain electrical panels. The panel manufacturer anticipates that other approved breakers will be utilized. They ensure these breakers can be safely installed, complying with Section 110.3 of the NEC. This accommodation allows for flexibility in breaker selection, provided the chosen breaker meets safety standards and is appropriate for the panel. Understanding the relationship between panel and breaker labels is crucial for electrical installations. Here's a detailed explanation of the factors involved. Firstly, the panel's label provides essential information about the panel itself, including its voltage rating, amperage capacity, and the types of breakers that are specifically designed and tested for use within that panel. This label is a starting point for ensuring compatibility and safety. Secondly, the breaker's label contains information specific to the circuit breaker, including its amperage rating, voltage rating, interrupting capacity, and any specific conditions for its use. Crucially, a classified breaker's label will also indicate the panels in which it is approved for use. The UL listing is a critical aspect of electrical safety. When a product is UL listed, it signifies that UL has tested a representative sample of the product and determined that it meets UL requirements for safety. These requirements are based on UL published and nationally recognized standards for safety. The UL listing mark on a product indicates that the product has undergone these tests and meets the applicable safety standards. Classified breakers are designed to be interchangeable with specific breakers in certain panels, even if they are not explicitly listed on the panel's label. This classification is based on testing and evaluation by UL or another recognized testing laboratory to ensure that the classified breaker performs safely and effectively in the intended panel. Section 110.3 of the National Electrical Code states that all equipment must be installed and used in accordance with the instructions included in the listing or labeling. This means that if a classified breaker is UL listed for use in a particular panel, its installation in that panel does not violate 110.3, even if the panel's label does not specifically list that breaker. However, it is important to verify that the classified breaker is indeed listed for use in the specific panel in question. This information should be clearly indicated on the breaker's label or in the manufacturer's documentation. If there is any doubt, it is always best to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards. The panel manufacturer plays a significant role in allowing the use of classified breakers. They design the panel with certain safety factors and clearances, anticipating that various approved breakers will be used. By ensuring that the panel can safely accommodate different types of breakers, the manufacturer allows for greater flexibility in breaker selection. However, this flexibility comes with the responsibility of ensuring that the chosen breaker is indeed appropriate for the panel and that it meets all applicable safety standards. Electrical inspectors are responsible for verifying that electrical installations comply with the National Electrical Code and other applicable standards. When inspecting an installation with a classified breaker, the inspector will typically check the breaker's label to ensure that it is listed for use in the specific panel. They will also verify that the installation is in accordance with the breaker's instructions and that all other applicable requirements are met. In summary, the use of a classified breaker in a panel does not necessarily violate 110.3 of the National Electrical Code, even if the panel's label does not specifically list that breaker. The breaker's label supersedes the panel's label, provided that the breaker is UL listed for use in the specific panel and that the installation is in accordance with all applicable codes and standards. Always verify compatibility and consult with a qualified professional if there is any doubt. Considering specific scenarios further clarifies the application of these principles. Consider a scenario where an electrical panel is designed to accept standard 1-inch wide circuit breakers. The panel's label lists several specific breaker models from the original manufacturer. However, a classified breaker from a different manufacturer is available, and it is UL listed specifically for use in panels that accept standard 1-inch wide breakers, including the panel in question. In this case, the classified breaker can be used without violating 110.3 as long as its label clearly indicates its compatibility with the panel. Conversely, consider a scenario where the classified breaker is not UL listed for use in the specific panel. The breaker's label only indicates compatibility with a different type of panel or does not provide sufficient information about its compatibility. In this case, using the classified breaker would violate 110.3 as it would not be installed and used in accordance with its listing and labeling. It is also important to consider the interrupting capacity of the circuit breaker. The interrupting capacity is the maximum fault current that the breaker can safely interrupt. The breaker's interrupting capacity must be equal to or greater than the available fault current at the point of installation. If the breaker's interrupting capacity is too low, it could fail to interrupt a fault current, leading to equipment damage, fire, or personal injury. The available fault current can be calculated using engineering methods, or it can be determined by consulting with the local utility company. The breaker's interrupting capacity is typically marked on its label. For example, a breaker might be marked with an interrupting capacity of 10,000 amps, meaning that it can safely interrupt a fault current of up to 10,000 amps. When selecting a classified breaker, it is essential to ensure that its interrupting capacity is sufficient for the application. In addition to the interrupting capacity, it is also important to consider the voltage and amperage ratings of the circuit breaker. The breaker's voltage rating must be equal to or greater than the system voltage. The breaker's amperage rating must be appropriate for the circuit that it is protecting. For example, a 15 amp breaker should be used to protect a circuit with a maximum load of 15 amps. Using a breaker with an incorrect voltage or amperage rating can lead to equipment damage, fire, or personal injury. It is also important to ensure that the circuit breaker is properly installed and maintained. The breaker should be securely mounted in the panel and properly connected to the circuit wiring. The breaker should be inspected periodically for signs of damage or wear. If the breaker is tripped frequently, it should be investigated to determine the cause of the tripping. Common causes of breaker tripping include overloads, short circuits, and ground faults. Overloads occur when the circuit is drawing more current than it is designed to handle. Short circuits occur when there is an unintended connection between two conductors. Ground faults occur when there is an unintended connection between a conductor and ground. In some cases, the use of classified breakers may be subject to local electrical codes or regulations. It is important to check with the local authority having jurisdiction to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements. In addition to the technical considerations, it is also important to consider the potential liability associated with the use of classified breakers. If a classified breaker is installed incorrectly or if it fails to perform as intended, it could lead to property damage, personal injury, or even death. In such cases, the installer, the electrician, and the building owner could be held liable. Therefore, it is essential to exercise caution when using classified breakers and to ensure that they are installed and used in accordance with all applicable codes and standards. Regular inspections and maintenance are also important to ensure the continued safe operation of the electrical system. Furthermore, documentation is crucial. Keep records of the breaker's specifications, panel specifications, and any relevant approvals or certifications. This documentation can be valuable in the event of an inspection or any future issues. Always consult with qualified professionals when dealing with electrical systems. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is important to have the knowledge and experience to perform the work safely and correctly. If you are not comfortable working with electrical systems, it is best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work. Safety is paramount. Always to energize the circuit before working on it. Use appropriate personal protective equipment, such as gloves and safety glasses. Follow all applicable safety procedures and guidelines. In conclusion, the use of classified breakers in electrical panels is a complex issue that requires careful consideration of various factors. While the breaker's label generally supersedes the panel's label, it is essential to verify compatibility, ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards, and exercise caution to ensure the safety of the installation. Consulting with qualified professionals and maintaining thorough documentation are also important steps to take. By following these guidelines, you can help ensure that electrical installations are safe, reliable, and compliant with all applicable requirements. Remember to always prioritize safety and seek professional guidance when needed. In the context of electrical installations, understanding the specific regulations and standards is paramount. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, serves as the benchmark for safe electrical practices in the United States. It provides detailed guidelines on various aspects of electrical systems, including wiring, equipment installation, and safety measures. When dealing with classified circuit breakers, it's essential to refer to the relevant sections of the NEC to ensure compliance. Section 110.3b of the NEC specifically addresses the installation and use of equipment according to its listing and labeling. This means that any electrical equipment, including circuit breakers, must be installed and used in accordance with the instructions provided by the manufacturer and as indicated on the equipment's label. When a classified circuit breaker is used in an electrical panel, it's crucial to verify that the breaker is listed and labeled for use in that specific type of panel. This information is typically found on the breaker's label or in the manufacturer's documentation. If the breaker is not listed for use in the panel, its installation would violate NEC Section 110.3b. In addition to Section 110.3b, other sections of the NEC may also be relevant to the use of classified circuit breakers. For example, Section 240.3 addresses the protection of conductors against overcurrent. This section requires that conductors be protected by overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers that are sized appropriately for the conductor's ampacity. When selecting a classified circuit breaker, it's important to ensure that its amperage rating is compatible with the ampacity of the conductors it is protecting. Another important consideration is the interrupting rating of the circuit breaker. The interrupting rating is the maximum fault current that the breaker can safely interrupt without failing. The interrupting rating of the breaker must be equal to or greater than the available fault current at the point of installation. The available fault current can be determined by performing a fault current study, which is typically conducted by a qualified electrical engineer. When selecting a classified circuit breaker, it's important to ensure that its interrupting rating is sufficient for the application. In addition to the NEC, local electrical codes and regulations may also apply to the use of classified circuit breakers. These local codes may have additional requirements or restrictions that must be followed. It's important to check with the local authority having jurisdiction to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. When installing a classified circuit breaker, it's important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The instructions will provide detailed information on how to properly install the breaker, including torque requirements for the connections and any specific mounting instructions. Failure to follow the manufacturer's instructions could result in a dangerous installation. Once the classified circuit breaker has been installed, it's important to test it to ensure that it is functioning properly. The breaker can be tested by using a circuit breaker tester, which is a device that simulates a fault condition and verifies that the breaker trips as expected. Regular testing of circuit breakers is important to ensure that they will function properly in the event of a fault. In addition to testing, regular maintenance of circuit breakers is also important. Circuit breakers should be inspected periodically for signs of damage or wear. The connections should be checked to ensure that they are tight and free of corrosion. Any damaged or worn breakers should be replaced immediately. Proper installation, testing, and maintenance of classified circuit breakers are essential for ensuring the safety and reliability of electrical systems. By following the guidelines provided in the NEC and the manufacturer's instructions, you can help ensure that classified circuit breakers are used safely and effectively. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it's always best to consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. Safety should always be the top priority when working with electrical systems. Never work on live circuits, and always use appropriate personal protective equipment. By following these safety precautions, you can help prevent electrical accidents and injuries. In summary, understanding the NEC and local codes, verifying compatibility, ensuring proper installation, and conducting regular testing and maintenance are all crucial steps in the safe and effective use of classified circuit breakers and electrical panels. Always prioritize safety and seek professional guidance when needed.